Good day, folks. Today I'm going to be reviewing E.T. the board game. This game came out in 1982 from Parker Brothers, and it is for 2 to 4 players. Now, this game is based on the movie, quite obviously, which is a classic movie. And the object of this game is to be the player that has the most amount of chips by the time E.T. reaches his spaceship and flies off to home. So, let's show you E.T. Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and start with the game board, and there's a lot of spaces on here which I'll go over. But ultimately what you're going to be doing is you're going to be moving E.T. in a counterclockwise direction, and you'll be able to move them up once you get to this space, and you can just simply move them up to the next ring. And the game is going to go ahead and once E.T. is able to make his transmitter phone, which will be made over here with these puzzle pieces, and if whenever E.T. lands on this space right here by exact count, which if that happens, then you're going to go ahead and place the spaceship here on the space, throw E.T. in there, and then take off, and that's going to end the game. Here is E.T. Pretty nice little figure of him over here, and he's going to start right here. Right here we have two types of cards. We have the E.T. and Elliot card, and you're going to be using this card to help E.T. fly, which I'll talk about. You have costume cards over here, which you can win whenever you land on the costume space over here. Now, depending on how many players there are, you're only going to be able to use that many cards throughout the game for everybody. For a 2-player game, you'll have 4 cards. A 3-player game 5, and 4-player game 6. And once those cards are used up, they're going to be gone. Speaking of E.T.'s ghost costume, here it is. Whenever you decide to play it, you're just simply going to go ahead and put the costume over E.T. like that. And what this is going to do is it's going to protect them from any of the bad spaces, as I call them. And again, I'm going to go over all of those spaces. And right here is a die that basically goes from 1 to 3. Now, on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and look 3 spaces ahead. And then you're going to try to guess what number you're going to roll. If you end up guessing right, you're going to go ahead and get another turn. If you end up guessing wrong, then that's going to end your turn. And whatever space you land on, you'll simply follow the directions. You also have a bunch of chips in here. And what you're trying to do in this game is you're trying to be the person that has the most amount of chips. And you're going to be earning them throughout the game by landing on the spaces. Speaking of the spaces, here they are. We've got the quick E.T. hide space where E.T. is hiding behind the animals. And there's a +1 here. In this case, he will go ahead and collect 1 chip. And any number you see with a +2 or a +3, that's how many chips that you're going to go ahead and collect. You have the transmitter beacon space over here, which is this. If you land on there, you're going to go ahead and place a puzzle piece over here to help build the transmitter in the middle, and you will go ahead and collect 3 chips. The ghost costume over here, you will go ahead and win a ghost costume card, and you can use this before you roll the die. And again, what the ghost costume will do is it will give you the option to ignore the instructions that are on a space that you will land on. And you're going to be using this on anything like, say, you might lose chips or something like that. If you land on a space like that with the ghost costume, you're not going to lose the chips. Now, there's a spot here called Men with Flashlights. And this says you lose 1. And then you'll fly. And I'll talk about what flying here is in a minute. But basically, you're going to lose 1 chip if you land on this. Now, the way flying works is, let's just say I landed over here and I had to go ahead and make E.T. fly. What one of my opponents is going to do is they're going to stick this card on my forehead according to the rules. Now, you don't have to do that. You could just simply hide it and then do like this. But what I'll have to do in this case is I'm going to have to guess whether it is on the E.T. side of the card or the Elliot side of the card. So let's say it was on my head and Elliot was showing, and I guessed Elliot and I was correct. Well, now I will be able to help E.T. fly. What that basically means is I'll be able to move him to any space here on the board. The only rule being that it has to be the first one of a space. So, for example, if I wanted to fly E.T. To the puzzle space over here, I'm not going to be able to fly him over here. I have to fly him to the first available puzzle space. Same with everything else. The other rule is that if you wanted to, say, fly E.T. over here, to move him up, you're only going to be able to do that if that is the first arrow space on the board that's doing that. So for example, if you're over here and you wanted to fly E.T. here, you wouldn't be able to do it because this space is first. So you would have to fly E.T. there if that's what you wanted to do. If it turns out that I'm wrong, then my opponent will get a chance to guess, and if he's right, he will help E.T. to fly. Wherever you fly E.T., you're just going to simply follow the instructions. This is the tracker van. And what you're going to do here is you're going to have to be the person that helps E.T. to fly, and only you. And every time you guess incorrectly, you are going to lose 1 chip for each miss. Right over here is the Gertie space. If you land on here, you're going to lose 2 chips, and then whoever helps E.T. to fly is going to win 2 chips. We have the men in spacesuits space over here. If you land on this, you're going to roll the die, and that's how many chips that you're going to end up losing. The aerospaces, this is going to move you up to the next level if you're on the bottom, and you'll collect 2 chips. The playground space, self-explanatory, you'll just simply gain 2 chips there. And then finally, this is a space that's going to enable you to go into the spaceship and end the game. You have to land on this by exact count. You cannot fly here. Now, once the transmitter has been fully assembled, this is going to allow E.T. to move over here to get the spaceship. He's not going to be able to move there without the transmitter. The only other rule is, if you end up landing on a transmitter space like this, and the transmitter's already been built, you're not going to be able to collect the 3 chips. We're going to continue playing the game until somebody ends up landing over here. Once somebody lands over there, you're going to go ahead and take the big spaceship and go ahead and just pretend to put E.T. in here. I'm just going to put him in here like this, and then fly away. Whee! And then everybody's going to go ahead and count the chips that they have collected, and whoever has the most amount of chips by the end of the game is going to win. And that, folks, is E.T. the Extra Terrestrial board game. So my final thoughts on E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. Well, we actually had this game when my brother and I were kids, and I remember playing it, but it's been years since I had played it until I found this copy. And we also had the Atari 2600 game of the same name. And I don't know if any of you remember this, but that game was a complete disaster. It got released way too soon, and Atari ended up burying like thousands of copies of that game in the desert. And it wasn't until recently when they actually unearthed the games, and there's a ton of people out there that they were actually giving these older games to. But the game was I think kind of the same thing applies with the components. And let me tell you, that spaceship has got to be the absolute worst component I have ever seen in a board game. It's a cool idea for sure, but it took me and my wife forever to put this thing together. The assembly instructions were really vague, and the pictures that they had showing you how to do it made no sense. And we had a new copy, and we were already having to start using tape. There's perforations in the ship that are not supposed to be torn. I have no idea why those are there. And you're supposed to bend some of the pieces inward, which is close to impossible. But we did get the thing assembled as best we could, but it took us probably a good half hour, and it took both of us to do it. So worst component I've ever seen as far as the quality. Just horrible. The chips are okay. They're made from the cardboard cutouts and stuff like that. I would say the game is average. You're obviously going to be rolling and moving. You do have the guessing aspect, obviously. I think it's kind of a cool rule where you have to try to guess the number, and you'll get to roll again if you get that number. I think the E.T. Elliott card to help E.T. fly is a pretty cool idea. But the only thing with that rule is you're never going to move to a space that's going to affect you negatively. You're always going to move to a space that's either going to give you chips or maybe help you get E.T. to the spaceship faster. So I think it would have been a cool rule if they would have said, you know, if you land on a space that's like a space suit guy or something like that, that's going to end up affecting your opponent instead. So you could obviously throw that in as a house rule if you wanted to, but that would give you some more options as far as what you wanted to do. I remember my brother and I enjoyed playing this when we had it, so kids might enjoy this game if they're fond of E.T. Or I actually ended up finding this game at a thrift store, and it was new. It had never been played before. The parts were all unpunched and everything like that, and it was like $2, I think, which was a shock because this is a hard game to find complete anywhere, unless you're going online, of course. I think the game typically sells for maybe around $15 or so. The game for kids, I think, is okay. I know my brother and I enjoyed it when we were kids. I don't know how that would fare today. For adults, I would probably recommend throwing in a few house rules to make the game more enjoyable. But I would just simply say the game is okay for what it is. So guys, that's my review of E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. Y'all take care, keep on gaming, and phone home.